Good evening. Will everyone please quiet down so we can begin our meeting? Good evening and welcome to the Providence City Council. On this Thursday, April 2nd, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Present.
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 Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Councilor Royas.
Present.
Councilwoman Ryan.
Present.
Majority Whip Sanchez.
Present.
Councilman Taylor.
Present.
Councilwoman Ana Vargas.
Present.
Councilman Oscar Vargas.
Present.
You have 15 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This evening, the invocation will be given by Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris. Will everyone, including our guests, please rise?
Father God, as we enter this week and continue this week, a holy week, I want to offer a prayer of hope and encouragement. I want to offer a prayer of us really realizing that everything that we are going through is already being considered by a man that took a cross one day, went to the cross, died on the cross, and then rose again. We understand that there's a lot of hurt and uncertainty in this world today. We understand that we may be facing a war. We understand that we may not even have the necessary means, the basic needs. We understand that. But you have to know that there is a man that loved you so much that he gave his own life and then he rose again. And he will return again. So as we remember on this Easter that we celebrate, that is the purpose of the celebration. And that's my prayer for tonight, a prayer of hope and a prayer of encouragement. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Councilor. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilwoman Shelley Peterson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, item 3.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 3 and move approval.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Madam Clerk, I'm having problems.
It's not working.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Vargas. And no.
We need you, Darius.
And the vote is now closed. That is 15 ayes. The motion carries. The minutes are approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 4.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 4 through 10.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on items 4 through 10? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Madam Clerk, please note 4 as received, 5 referred to the Committee on Finance, 6 through 10 as received.
So noted.
And thank you, as always, for all of the residents who are stepping up to serve. Item 11.
Madam President.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Before we take over item 11, I'm going to ask Pro Tem Pichardo to take the chair. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Item 11.
Mr.
Majority
President,
Whip
motion
Sanchez.
to waive the reading of items 11 through 17.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Any discussion? Discussion? Councilwoman Sue Andawa. I'm looking at you.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Clerk, I'm wondering if we could please read item 14 into the record.
Madam Clerk, please read.
Whereas Essence Tyler Cristal was born on April 2nd, 1990, and is remembered as a beloved daughter of Diana Garlington and the late Randolph Cooper, and a devoted sister to Kiana, Lamar, and Siobhan. And whereas Essence was known for her vibrant personality and confidence, which brought warmth to all those around her. And whereas in her community, she was known as a talented hairstylist, sharing her skills with others and working toward a future in which she would own her own salon. And whereas she carried that goal with determination, seeking to build a stable and hopeful future for herself and her family. And whereas, above all, Essence was a loving and devoted mother to her son Dwayne, who was the center of her life and a constant source of pride and joy. And whereas Essence Tyler Cristal was tragically taken by gun violence on November 26, 2011, at the age of 21, leaving behind a family and community who continue to carry her memory. And whereas her life, though brief, was filled with love and connection, and her memory lives on through her son and all those who knew her. And whereas it is fitting that the City of Providence honor her life in a lasting way, ensuring that her name remains present in the community she called home, and that her story is remembered with dignity. Now therefore be it resolved that the Providence City Council hereby honors the life and memory of Essence Tyler Cristal, and be it further resolved that the City Council authorizes the installation of a commemorative plaque that shall read Essence Tyler Cristal Memorial Square at the intersection of Houston Street and Broad Street along the east side of Broad Street, and marks its introduction on April 2nd in recognition of her birthday and her place in the life of this community.
Thank you. Councilwoman Andawa.
Thank you so much. I rise also to recognize Essence's mother, Diana, who has joined us today, who not only is Essence's mother, but has become a tireless advocate, not just for Essence, but to work to prevent all families from having to suffer the same fate that Essence and her family have. She has become such a light in our community, and she already was, but has worked so tirelessly on behalf of so many folks. And it is so fitting that we honor Essence's birthday today with finally recognizing her with this memorial square. I also want to acknowledge Gloria, my constituent, who raised this with me, that the city had gone for far too long without acknowledging in a formal way Essence's passing and the work that Diana has done to keep her memory alive and her case open and fight so tirelessly on behalf of all others who've experienced gun violence. So thank you for joining us, Diana, and I'm not glad we're doing this because it's awful, but I'm glad that we're finally able to memorialize your daughter in a permanent way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilman Majority Leader Pedro Espinal.
Thank you, Mr. President. This happened to be in my ward at the corner of Houston and Broad. So I'm extremely grateful to my co-sponsor that brought it up. It is a way to honor a young, dynamic lady and such an honorable family. We stand tall with her tonight as we dedicate this. It will be referred to committee, to the ERP committee, and we will all have an opportunity to really speak about your family, how well deserving this is. It's quite an honor to me. It's great having you here.
Thank you, and welcome Diane and Gloria. Appreciate it. Further discussion. Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise on Article 12. And in this is an ordinance amending Chapter 21 in our Code of Ordinance of the City of Providence. This is in the Revenue and Finance part. And it's called the Providence Bill Act. This is a very important piece of legislation, and I hope my colleagues consider this. We have done an amazing job of preparing and getting people ready for the opportunity to build and build more. But what I'm finding and what we're finding, and I want to thank Council President for also identifying this as well, what we're finding is that a lot of our builders, especially in affordable housing, are finding it a strain on them once they start to build. What happens is they get a large tax bill from the city, and with that bill, a lot of times they haven't even prepared for renters to be able to rent be able to rent. So a lot of times these bills come in, they haven't been prepared to rent the units that they have prepared for the city. So right here, this bill will be able to prohibit a large tax bill. We will be able to, for 2 years, be able to allow them to extend this bill for 2 years, a tax bill, without the damage of them not being able to follow their projects or do their projects well. This Bill Act, this Providence Bill Act will also allow us to give opportunities for more opportunities for building, and the exempt of 2 years of exemption from tax will allow more building, I believe, in the city of Providence. So I ask my colleagues to please support this, and I appreciate your listening.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion on number 12?
Mr. President.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President. Hi.
President Miller.
Thank you. I just want to thank Councilwoman Harris for her work on this item, and also the entire council. This comes as a next step in the hard work that the council has been doing to promote many issues of affordability and housing development. I saw a little bit of confusion online as I was taking a nap due to this, whatever I have going on. So just to be clear, it is a tax stabilization agreement because that is the one tool that municipal government or the city of Providence has as given to us by the state to attack this situation. So what happens is a nonprofit developer or a for-profit developer who is doing income restricted, low income, low and moderate housing, once the housing is occupied, they can take advantage of 8 law. As 8 law was, that's the thing that says that your tax bill is equal to 8% of the rental income. That's as the state law was envisioned, that is a great thing. But you don't have that when it's empty, when it's an unbuilt lot, or when you're doing substantial rehabilitation. So all of a sudden, you've got a problem with your financial stack to actually build the thing. You've got a tax bill that you have to come in front of us and figure out a process that's a little opaque for. And so what this does is it just removes a barrier. It just streamlines a thing. And Councilwoman Harris and I have both had a lot of projects that have faced this issue in our neighborhoods. And I think that's been shared by other councilors, but I know Councilwoman Harris has been for the last 3 years advocating in each occasion. And so we're going to do something structural. We're going to do something all at once. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman John Goncalves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to share that I deeply appreciate Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris for putting this proposal forward, and thank you, Council President, for joining her in this effort. Yes, this is an issue that we're experiencing all across our city, and the more that we can build low-income affordable housing, deeply low-income affordable housing, we should be supporting that at every turn. So again, I want to thank you for your leadership. And then finally, I just want to thank Diana and Gloria for being here. And thank you for your leadership, especially along the gun advocacy front. As a member of IRP, I look forward to working with all of you and the chairwoman to advance this. And I just want to say my deepest condolences to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to keep going back and forth between items, but since my colleague mentioned item 14, I just wanted to throw my couple words in there. Diana is actually the co-chair of a committee here in the city of Providence that works to keep ending and legislating in a way that is safer for all of Providence, and that's the Committee on Ending Gun Violence. Not only is Diana very involved at the State House year after year, she's also very involved here on a local level. So something we've been chatting about as a committee over the past few months is luckily the city of Providence is moving in the right direction when it comes to ending gun violence. But one gun death is too much on an annual basis. So there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of legislation that will help us to keep moving in the right direction. But what we need, truthfully, as a city our size, is a dedicated office here in the city of Providence that's committed 24/7 all year round to do this work. So that's something that I've been exploring. There's not a huge financial uplifting to start such office, because the really positive thing is that there's a lot of federal dollars, a lot of grants out there, but we really just need someone doing all the logistical work all year round here in Providence. So that's something that hopefully, we're able to do this upcoming budget season. That's something that I have been very passionate about as a younger person. I see it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. The guns in our communities, we've all seen it. Kids are getting access to guns at a much earlier age. So anything that we can do to prevent that, to keep uplifting the youth and young people and all adults, I'm fully committed. But I just wanted to take a second to make sure that Diana Garlington got that public recognition. I know she doesn't do it for any recognition, but once while we have someone doing that work on a day-to-day basis, I think it's important to acknowledge and uplift that work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Graves.
I too want to say something about Miss Garlington. Diane's child died terribly. I lost a child to gun. Now, they were playing with a gun, but a loss of life because of a gun is a loss of life. So I have to applaud her because she has fiercely been out there for decades fighting hard to get these guns off the street. And sometimes it just takes tragedy to get us to see and get us to make everybody else see what's going on. And she hasn't given up. She has not stopped. She's still fighting. And I just think that we need to, this is not a hand clapping time because it's a wonderful thing. It's a hand clapping time because it takes a lot to continue to fight. It takes a lot to keep telling your story. And I think we need to applaud her for the job that she's doing, not just for her child, but for all these other children that have lost their lives because of guns. So could we just stand and give her applause?
Thank you, Councilwoman Graves. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Peterson.
Thank you. I just want to echo all of the sentiments that were presented here with regards to Essences Square, the Memorial Square that's coming, but also in regards to Diana. I had the pleasure of being able to get to know Diana when we ran for office 4 years ago. And one of the things that I think highlighted how exceptional of a person she is in general is not just her advocacy, but her consistency in doing all of that. She does it, she goes above and beyond in ways that most of us don't ever even notice. And I'm not sure if everybody knows here, but she's also a published author and goes into detail about just how much, how meaningful all of this is and everything that she's done. And not only, discussing her daughter's story, but also a published children's author. And I just want to recognize when we sit here and we recognize so many of our constituents and fellow Providence residents, one of the things I think we not maybe necessarily forget, but just not acknowledge is all of the extras that people do without ever even noticing. And one of the things I think that has struck me so much about Diana is it's all the time, whether she's an author, which, by the way, there's a copy of the book at Wanskuck Library available on display. I don't even know if you know that, Diana, but we made sure that we did that as a Ward 14 resident. She's also she does a bowling fundraiser annually. And she does a Lock for Arms, and there's so many, and she's Moms on Demand, and she's a part of the advocacy there. And it's just those quiet things that often don't necessarily go noticed, but they're so important and so impactful in the everyday work that needs to go and be recognized. So I just want to highlight some of those small things. But they're not small, they're actually very big and very significant and very meaningful to me. So thank you, Diana. From all of us here, we've praised your graces, but it's so warranted, and I appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris.
I also want to add to all the beautiful stuff that's been said about Diana. Diana was in my youth program back at DARE back in the day, and I seen Diana years and years ago as a leader. I said to her, "You're a leader." And today, as I listen to everyone speak about her and your experience with her and everything that I've heard about her, it just makes me feel like I'm a proud mom, and my kid just graduated from college or whatever, but it feels good to see leaders really grow up in our neighborhood and really take things serious and care about people. Diana have always reflected all of that. It all came out of all of you guys who have met her, by the way, but this is in 2000 when I first met, the years of 2000 that I met Diana, and just knowing that who she is today is just amazing. She's for real. She's a real thing. So I just had to say that because it would have been boiling in my stomach. Thank you.
Thank you. She is for real. Any further discussion on items 11 through 17? Councilwoman Graves?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. I refer item 11 to Committee on City Property. Item 12, refer to Committee on Finance. Item 13, refer to Special Committee on Hope. Item 14, refer to Committee on ERP. Item 15, refer to Special Committee on Hope. Item 16, refer to Special Committee on Hope. And item 17, refer to Committee on Finance.
So noted.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll call back Council President Rachel Miller. In the meantime, also see in the audience former Representative Carmen Castillo, Representative Siegel, and also Representative Enrique Sanchez. Welcome to today's hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pro Tem Pichardo, and allowing me to speak on those issues. Item 18, please.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 18 and 19 and pass on a voice vote.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you please read items 18 and 19? 18 for sure. Is there a request to read item 19? Okay.
Yes, can that be read, please? Thank you.
Item 18, whereas the residents of the state of Rhode Island of Taino heritage represent a diverse cultural community in our state, including in the city of Providence. And whereas the Taino are the indigenous people of Borican and other Caribbean islands with a rich cultural heritage, language, and traditions. And whereas members of several Taino tribal communities, including the Sibuko Bayaman Taino tribe, the Baramaya Guayania Yukayaki, and the Baito Magua Yake Taino, reside in and contribute to communities in Providence and across the state of Rhode Island through cultural preservation, education, and community engagement. And whereas the Taino people contributed historically and culturally to the rich and vibrant history of Rhode Island. And whereas Taino identifying residents of Providence are part of a broader Taino diaspora and contribute to the cultural diversity of the state through education, community engagement, and cultural preservation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Providence City Council hereby acknowledges the presence and partnership of the Rhode Island American Indian Heritage Commission and the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of the Americas, whose members represent the continued survival and resurgence of Taino heritage in the region. Be it further resolved that the Providence City Council furthermore recognizes Taino heritage and acknowledges the presence and contributions of Taino-descended residents within the state, ensuring that their heritage is recognized and preserved for future generations while fostering a greater understanding of their historical and ongoing contributions to the City of Providence and the State of Rhode Island. Be it further resolved that upon passage, copies of this resolution be transmitted to the Taino community representatives in Providence and in Rhode Island generally. Item number 19, whereas every community depends on people who step forward to serve and guide the next generation. Whereas Carla Monge is one of those individuals, a medical student with roots in community service who has shown a clear commitment to mentorship and to expanding access to careers in medicine for students who have lacked opportunity. And whereas through her leadership in the Latino Medical Student Association and her work with the Pathways to Medicine program, she has helped connect local students with mentors and real opportunities, offering guidance that feels personal and within reach. And whereas her work has strengthened the relationship between the medical school and the surrounding neighborhoods of Providence, helping young people see a future for themselves in healthcare and giving them the confidence to pursue it. And whereas those who know her describe someone who shows up consistently and makes sure others feel supported along the way. And whereas her commitment to advancing equity in medicine is reflected in her research on underserved communities in Providence and in her work to expand language access through a bilingual certification pathway for medical students developed in partnership with Rhode Island Hospital. And whereas her example shows that progress in a city depends on individuals who choose to serve and support those around them. And whereas her efforts contribute to a healthcare system that better reflects and serves the people of Providence. Now therefore be it resolved that the Providence City Council hereby expresses its sincere appreciation and recognition of Carla Monge for her contributions to the community and her leadership in opening pathways into medicine. And be it further resolved that the members of the City Council commend her service and extend their best wishes for continued success with confidence that her work will continue to shape the next generation of healthcare leaders in Providence.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Pro Tem Pichardo, would you like to speak on 18?
Yes, just wanted to highlight that as we in the city of Providence and also the state recognizing the indigenous community, not just only in the United States, but also in the Caribbean. And as we continue to cherish our ancestors, that we in the Caribbean and the Antilles, along with Latin America, have this rich history based on the Taino community, whether they're based in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, or Jamaica, or in other places, that today we honor them, but also their leadership. Wanted to call out and give credit where credit is due, that has been doing tremendous research in the community, and a leader in the state of Rhode Island, Joel Rosario Tapia, and also Violeta Cruz del Valle. Two individuals and many more who have partnered with many indigenous groups in the city of Providence, state of Rhode Island, and all throughout New England to ensure that their voices and our voices are heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ryan.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise simply on item 19, simply to recognize a lovely lady, a resident of the 5th Ward, Carla Monge, the resolution that Miguel Young drafted, one of his special works of art, expresses her wonderful accomplishments to date. She's a young lady. She's already accomplished so much. Has a wonderful family. Her mom actually works for the administration here, right here at City Hall, and is a dear friend. It's exciting to see a young lady of this caliber emerge. She's very engaged in my community, our community, and it's just exciting to see our youth emerge with these talents. Her future is bright. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on items 18 or 19? Majority Leader Espinal.
Yes, thank you. On item 18, I so honored to co-sponsor pro temp resolution in regards to Tainos. And also on item 19, I rise to honor this young lady from the 5th Ward that's done amazing work. At the same time, I will ask our clerk to read her resolution into the record if we could. Thank you.
We did.
Oh, you read them together.
Yes. It was wonderful.
Yes, read it together with the other one.
That's what happened.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Further
Thank you
discussion
so much. Thank you.
on item 18 and 19? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is now closed. That is 15 ayes for items 18 and 19, and they pass on an electronic voice vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 20.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 20 and 21.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on item 20 and 21? Councilwoman Vargas.
Thank you for the opportunity to be putting this resolution. It's because my people from my works when I'm doing the parking lot, so it has some problem last time for the snow and everything. So the car was on another side and received the ticket for $250. That's the reason I put in that resolution. Providence can be, can park anywhere, because right now it has several area you can parking when you're doing the parking lot overnight. So that's the reason I put in that, because people receive, because cannot can move the car, receive the tickets. So I hope my colleagues can help me out to pass that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any further discussion on 20 and 21? Councilman Vargas.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I rise on 21. The reason I put in this one is because I've been getting phone calls with the new revaluation that we have on the properties. We walk, or the administration walk, the empty lots. The empty lots price before was $30,000, from $20,000 to $40,000 lots. Now it's $160,000 a price for an empty lot. That means these people are paying the full amount of taxes. And some people are using this lot to garden, to have tomatoes that we will need very soon with this economy that we have. And some people use it for parking. So the idea is to see if we can get permission from the legislators at the State House to have them to qualify for homestead if the lot is adjoined with the house where they live. It's a little bit relief that we can do for them because it's how much more we can take out of the taxpayers. That's the reason I'm putting this one. And I will ask for support. If you have any questions, please talk to me. I got answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion, 2021. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Madam Clerk, please refer 20 to the Committee on Public Works and 21 to the Committee on Finance.
So noted.
Item 22,
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 22 and pass on a voice vote.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Councilman?
22. 22 is because everybody's screaming for housing. Housing here, housing there. Oh my God, we need housing. Housing.
Affordable housing.
That's it. We have a beautiful mall. It's coming down the pipe pretty soon. The way is look into if we can have affordable housing or housing in their apartments. Have the first floor solid commercial and the rest of the floors residential. It's something to explore, but we need to explore anything what we have in this city because we really need housing. That's what we're looking for.
Housing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion on 22. Councilman Graves?
I agree, we need housing. We also need a mall. People go down there to shop. That's in my area, yes, they do. And I think we can have a mixture, but I can't see us just having one floor of a mall and the rest all housing. So I think but I think the bid is, they are already going out, there is a bid in, and I think that once that goes through, then the city can work with whoever that person is on that. So this is really kind of a non-starter. We have to really wait until the bid goes in. But thank you very much, my colleague.
Thank you, Counselor. Further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is now closed. You have 15 ayes. The motion carries. The matter is approved on an electronic voice vote.
Madam Clerk, item 23, please.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 23 and pass for the first time on a roll call vote.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second. Pro Tem Pichardo.
Thank you very much, President Miller. I proudly stand here as chairman of the Special Committee on Health, Opportunity, Prosperity, and Education. This bill before us is the Providence Rent Stabilization Ordinance, or Act. An ordinance that is very needed in the city of Providence. For the past several years, this conversation has taken place in the community and countless hours here in our chambers and throughout our wards. As we all know, and we can acknowledge the fact that we have a housing crisis, and we've tried to continuously bring up more policies, more programs to try to mitigate the situation that we have for our residents. This this act before us, we know that the situation in housing continues to be challenging for many residents in our wards. This, for us as a council and as chairman, we took it seriously in essence that everything we do here is serious, especially when it affects our bottom line. in our homes, in our city, and throughout the workforce. This has been carefully vetted since January when it was introduced. We had several public hearings with a not-so-perfect piece of legislation that continued to evolve because we heard feedback from our constituents, tenants, homeowners, business owners, landlords, and others of our elected officials. The ordinance is fair to everyone, I believe, and we believe. This act was voted unanimously by the committee after hearing testimony from various people in our state, in our city. A lot of people also came that are landlords. But we also heard from Larry Mancini, from Tom Seguros, from Trom Hong, the senior policy associate from Policy Link, which said at the end for all of us that rent stabilization brings stability for renters through supportive services. And so at this time, I'll stop here to let my other colleagues say a few words. But I also, before I do that, I wanted to thank the entire city clerk's office for lasting with us the many hours that we took to hear from the public. We were here at one point to 11 p.m. So thank you very much for all your work. To Aaron, the Deputy Chief of Staff and the Deputy and the Senior Policy Research, Miguel, Youngs, June, Rose, and to all our communication team that helped us try to educate and inform our residents in the city of Providence. And so with that said, I'll leave it to my colleagues that serve in the committee. I do want to also thank the committee members for showing up every time, asking the right questions, making sure that if they had any concerns and the feedback that we were receiving from each and every constituent that we have, whether it's in our ward, whether it's outside of the city of Providence, but also just bringing it up to me and to others to ensure that we could have addressed those issues. Thank you, and I'll probably rise up again.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Further discussion, Councilman Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we take up the first passage of rent stabilization. And before I continue, I also want to thank folks who made this happen, my fellow colleagues, this council's leadership, our policy staff, the clerks, everyone who's been cooking in the kitchen to produce something that arguably has received the most amount of civic engagement and participation in any single piece of legislation in this city. And we should be so proud of that. We've had public hearings after public hearings. We've had listening sessions, community meetings, neighborhood meetings on this. And I am proud of what we produced. And I also just want to be honest about how we've gotten here. As many of you know, 10 years ago, I was knocking on doors with DARE's Tenant and Homeowner Association, talking to neighbors about rent stabilization. Back then, we weren't even allowed to have this conversation in this chamber. We had to try to force it onto the docket through the city charter because this body 10 years ago wouldn't even entertain it. And so when we put this on the docket a few months ago, that was historic. And today is arguably more historic. And I'm just so proud of this moment we are in. And in those 10 years, this city, our residents, unfortunately though, paid the price. So before anything else, I just want to say thank you to the organizers who refused to let this die, to the tenants who kept speaking up when it was easier to ignore them, to the people who did the work long before it was politically convenient. I stand on your shoulders. And I am proud, truly proud, to be here casting what will be an historic first vote. And while I am proud, I don't pretend this to be abstract. Right now, families are watching us, not as spectators, but as people whose lives depend on what we do tonight. People are not asking for perfection. They're not, this is not going to solve all of the housing crisis. But what this will do is provide predictability. It will provide a sense of relief. I have said this over and over again. In this moment, I think about the 400 students in our public schools who are experiencing housing instability right now. Madam President, these are students sleeping in crowded living rooms of their relatives, shelters, and even in some cases, cars, and then expected to show up ready to learn the next morning. And some of us here right now are still questioning whether we should act. And so I want to say to my colleagues, especially those who will vote no tonight, I've heard the arguments. I've heard that we should remove emotion from this. But let me say this plainly. If housing doesn't make you emotional, you are just not paying attention. Because what you're really asking us to do is strip away urgency, to turn a human crisis into an academic exercise. I've heard this issue be framed as a supply side issue. And yes, everyone here believes we need to build more housing. We need subsidies. We need investment. But here's a question I keep asking, and I am still waiting for an answer. What do we do in the meantime? What do you tell the family whose rent is going up next month? What do you tell the tenant who's one increase away from eviction? What do you tell them? Do you tell them, wait? Do you tell them, be patient? Do you tell them to trust the market? Because the market is not patient with them. And let's stop dancing around something everyone in this room truly understands. There is pressure here. Pressure from development interest, pressure from donors, pressure from people who are doing just fine under the current system. And leadership means being able to look that pressure in the face and say no. Because the people most affected by this crisis are not the ones writing checks. They're the ones writing rent checks they can't afford. So yes, we need the 3 S's. We need to increase supply, and we're doing that right now. We need to offer subsidies, and we are doing that right now. But rejecting stabilization because it doesn't solve everything, that is not a policy, that is avoidance. That's how you do nothing while sounding reasonable. And after 10 years, quote, not yet, is not a serious answer. That is an abdication. So tonight I want to be clear about the choice. You can vote to protect a system that is pushing people out every single day, or you could vote to interrupt it, even just a little. I know where I stand. I stand with the people who have been waiting a decade just to be heard. I stand with the families who cannot wait another year, another month, another rent increase. And so I am proud to vote for this historic passage, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Before we continue, I just want to say two things really. The participation of residents across the city has made both the ordinance better and the process better. We do need to hear each other here in this chamber, so I will intervene if it is becoming, the situation is becoming such that we can't hear each other. But again, I appreciate everyone being here. Councilman Taylor.
So I won't get any applause for this, but I have no fear on history. History has shown that rent stabilization has not worked. I'm 60. I'm 63 years old. I've lived in the city for 36 years. When I first came on the fire department, to protect all you people out there. Protect
Okay.
all of you.
Point of
So
order,
what
Council
happened
President.
was, in 1988,
Council President, you can't
1987,
hear.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councilman
Sorry.
Taylor. We can't hear the counselor speak.
they don't want to hear the truth.
Heckling, not okay. I will enforce that. We're going to have our conversation. We're going to have the debate that we were elected to have, and we're going to have it respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. In 1987, when I came on the fire department, if people remember 36 years ago, a lot of people, my colleagues and people here, didn't live in Providence or weren't even born at that time. But if they can remember all the vacant houses that were in this city, they were selling houses on Adelaide Avenue, those nice Victorian houses for like $35,000. They couldn't give them away because they were vacant. And we used to have all these fires. It would be like on the third floor. Back then, they had the insurance. If it burned through the third floor, they'd knock it down and build a new house. But what happened is, in the 70s, this did not work. History's proved itself. It has not worked in San Francisco. It has not worked in Michigan. Even Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts, doesn't even want to put it in to have people to do this. So what's going to happen is, not now, maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, we're going to end up with vacant houses, like the mall. The mall's going to be vacant in 5 to 10 years. I guarantee it, unless we do something about it. But that takes a back step to what we're trying to do here. This was on the fast track. I don't understand. The same thing as the 8 law was on the fast track. We get something in our mind, and we just like move it right along. We don't know the fiscal impact to it. We have no real solid figure. Personally, I have a hard time with some council people voting on this that have rental property, because is it a ethical violation that they're going to benefit from it, as well as we did the ordinance, and then we did amendments, which I thought the amendments were even worse. But what happens with again, I think it's an ethical violation for certain people to vote for apprentices. Some people on the council work for a business that will monitor those apprentices. And I think that's wrong. And I think that helps those people out. Again, I'd also like to ask the solicitor on the vote of why are we voting for this when there is a Open Meetings Act violation during the Hope Committee. Can we vote on this, or what happens? I know there's I know it went to the Attorney General's office and it came back to the Mr. Khaleesi on your staff. So what happens? Can we vote on this? What happens on this?
Okay. So, Councilman, as you know, when an OMA violation or an OMA complaint is made against the council or a city body, it is my office's responsibility to defend the council and respond to the complaint. So I don't know that it's appropriate for me to get into the weeds of how to respond to the complaint, but I think what I can do, which will hopefully be helpful, I suppose, is give an understanding of what happens when a complaint is filed under OMA. I don't really think I can do any better than that in responding to your question. So,
well, my question is, can we vote for it with this allegation, true or false? I don't know. Can we actually vote on this?
So at this point, it's just a complaint. So there's nothing prohibiting you from voting now. It's a complaint alleging a violation of the Open Meetings Act by the committee that vetted this. And so what happens next is the city, we have 10 days to respond to that complaint. The complainant will have 5 days after that to respond to our answer. And then the Attorney General will issue an opinion. If the Attorney General determines that there was an OMA violation, the AG may proceed with an action against the council in Superior Court. Regardless of the Attorney General's opinion in an OMA, in evaluating an OMA complaint, a complainant may nevertheless file an action in Superior Court against the city. If the Superior Court were to find that the city did violate OMA, there are a number of things that the court could do in that ruling. They could issue an injunction against further action. They could issue a fine. They could void action taken by the body. So in this case, it would not be action taken by the full council, but rather by that committee. But at this point in time, all we have is a complaint that was just filed that we will respond to. So at this point, there's nothing prohibiting this body, the city council, from voting.
Thank you for clarifying that. So just back to the other thing, like I said, it's not going to work. It hasn't worked. It showed it hasn't worked in Europe, and it hasn't worked anywhere in the United States. There's plenty of history. Please Google rent stabilization. Look at all the different things. I personally was very upset and ashamed the way this process went, because it was all one-sided propaganda. That's all it was. Every time you turned on, every time I turned on my computer, there was the Providence City Council page, which is supposed to be not biased. You're supposed to be neutral, but we were not neutral on this. The people, I didn't get a chance to say what I thought. Nobody asked me. I didn't offer it, and I didn't want to do it. But unfortunately, what happened is this is a propaganda. It was almost like an election. It was almost like we were embarrassed. We were threatening people. Actually, we are threatening people, because I saw a posting today from my colleague threatening another colleague, saying, because he came out on his own Facebook page, not the city council Facebook page, and he said that he was against it, and he explained why. So we're now, as we've gone to the point where we're airing out all our discrepancies, as a council on Facebook, which is wrong, number one. Number two, I felt there was backdoor deals, obviously, because that's what happened with the Open Meetings Act. Everything was one way. The guy, Tom Segoras, he wrote about this years ago, about rent stabilization. We hired him because he was on our side. That's what happened. We don't know the fiscal impact of this. We don't even know if we can afford it. We don't know. We're bringing politics now into landlords and renters. When I didn't come to the meeting, but I saw the first person that came up and spoke at that meeting, you can go on YouTube, they said, verbatim almost, I've lived in an apartment for 6 months, and my rent went up, 6 years, I'm sorry, went out my apartment for 6 years, and my rent went up 11%. That's crazy. Well, let's figure easy math here. 6 years, because if I'm a landlord, I'm going up 4% every year, because I don't know if the city council or the mayor and them are going to vote my taxes to go up, or whatever else I got to fix the place. So 6 times 4, I'm just doing it, and you got to compound it. 6 times 4 is 24%. So renters, your rent is going up. And where's it going to be? Eventually, it's going to come back to the single-family homeowners. You can say no all the time, shake your head, do everything. Look at the history. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not making stuff up. It's all right there. I like to ask, I'm not great in math, but I think 6 times 4 is 24, not 11%. So what I'm saying is, this is a bad bill. The amendments were worse. It was all propaganda. People were almost like threatening people I had people call me threatening me. You know what? I really don't care, because I will look you straight in the face, and I will look you straight in the face 5 to 10 years from now if this passes, and when all the houses are vacant and your rent has gone up, and say, what happened? Geez, what happened? Because what we should be addressing this city 2 years ago, let me bring you a quick thing. 2 years ago, I'm going to go off track a little bit. 2 years ago, we addressed homelessness. The coal people there, oh my God, they're sleeping in here, we got to do that. This was the worst winter, and we did nothing. We had more snow and more everything, and as a council, we got the press the year before. Let's go for something else for press. What we should be addressing is the unfunded liability pension that's going to send this city into bankruptcy. What we should be addressing is the Providence Place Mall that's going to be vacant like Silver City. Lincoln's on its way out. All these malls are going to go out. What we should be addressing is the high cost of electric and gas that's killing the people. That's killing the people. That's killing the people more than your rent. And you have to have electricity and gas. So it's ridiculous. So we need to stop the propaganda, and I will be voting no, and I urge my council colleagues to vote no, because this is not going to work.
Thank you. Councilwoman Graves. Councilwoman Graves.
I gotta stand for this one. Let's go back to history. You said you've been here since what? 36 years?
Councilwoman.
No, okay.
Please
I'm
address
gonna-
me. You're
excuse
good. You're
me,
good. Just tell me
excuse
about it.
Excuse me.
That's all right.
I've been here since the 1960s. What was said before is an outright lie. When the people were empty, let me finish. Those empty houses that were referred to, that was white flight. Black people with minorities was moving in and people were moving out. They were setting their houses on fire because they didn't want black neighbors. That's what that was all about. Now, you want to know history? Talk to the one that knows about the history. Number one. Number two. I talk to the people that are now, right now, we're not going to have to go back to history, that have had their rent raised every 3 to 6 months. And it's not no 1% or 10% or whatever. They keep raising it and raising it and raising it. I sit in the office, volunteering my time to speak to people. You know what they come and tell me? I don't have a place to go. I get into an apartment. I know I'm not going to be able to stay there, but I need a place to stay. They get in an apartment, and as soon as they get into that apartment, because nobody wants to give them no yearly, lease, it's a month to month. 3 months later, 4 months later, 6 months later, they raise the rent. And 9 times out of 10, it is not no 4%. So let's be truthful. Go out and talk to the people. Don't make no guesses. Talk to the people that are out there living in those streets. Don't talk to these landlords. I am one. Don't talk to us. Talk to the people that are renting. I am fed up with this. I am fed up with this argument like we are trying our best to fight. If there was no war to fight, I wouldn't be out here fighting it. This is a war. And it's a war against the haves and the have-nots. We're tired of fighting the same war. There's more and more people going on that homeless list. There's more and more people trying to stay with a family member because they don't have a place to stay. These are people that work. These are people that have children that are going to school. These are people that are trying to live their life. So do not belittle them. Do not make fun of them. Do not make it seem like we are all making this up in our minds, because it is not true. It is not true. And I will fight to the end. I'm on this mountain, and I'm going to fight on this mountain. We need to see about them. This should be about the city of Providence residents. This should not have to do about your ward or my ward. This should be about the city. The majority of the people that live in our city rent. The majority of the people that we got letters from were landowners. They were the ones saying, no, this is a bad idea. And all those people that keep telling us about the 4% every year, that's a may. That's not you have to. That is You can, you may. You don't have to raise the rent. You raise the rent if you want to, or you raise the rent if your utilities go up, but you don't have to. I have not raised my rent, and I am a landlord. So we need to stop with this fear mongering, because that's all this is fear mongering. We need to worry about the people that have to live in this city that don't own a home. We need to worry about the people that live in this city that don't make over $60,000 a year, $60,000 a year. We got to worry about these families that are just trying to get by day to day. We have to worry about them. That's what our jobs are. Those are the ones that elected us. It's not those people that live in Barrington. It's not those people that live in Newport. It's not none of them. It's not our buddies. It's not our friends. We need to start thinking about our city and what's good for us, everybody. If we have a healthy city, if the majority of the people can live comfortably, they're not asking for luxuries. They're asking for a roof over their heads. That's all they want. They want to be able to afford that. And then you talk about, oh, the gas. Yeah, the gas and electric is going up all the time. What are we doing up there?
Please,
We're trying to find more money to pay more rent. That's what we're doing. So I'm going to tell you all, you got me up here, you got me excited, because I don't usually raise my voice. But Lord knows I can. And I'm going to tell you, you can sit here on your little high horses, and you can say, oh, I'm doing it, and I'm indignant. But you need, before you start quoting things, you need to know your history. And I'm going to tell you, coming from that era, and the people, the area you're talking about, I know exactly what happened. So don't quote the history with me. Do not quote it to me. I'm the wrong one. The other thing, if we don't start caring about each other, this city that I love my city. Half of you don't even live in my city that are talking. I love my city. Go back to your city. But in my city, you're going to respect it. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, everyone who's spoken so far. I spoke to our observers, audience, residents, participants tonight. I also want to speak to each other, our body. There are a few rules of the council that I will enforce. One of them is you cannot, as you know, Councilman, interject in conversation, and as you know, Councilman, address. I'm so sorry. That's a great example of what can't happen. And also, Councilwoman, to your point also, everyone should be addressing me. I won't let folks make personal attacks. I won't let folks talk about people's day jobs that they do or don't know anything about. We're going to have a debate on the issue in front of us. We're not going to fall into this 2026 moment of personal attacks that get us absolutely nowhere. So speak to me as the chair, and let's keep going. Majority Leader Espinal.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you so much for clarifying certain points that we must stay focused and stay on the subject and at the item that is ahead. There should be no personal attacks. Look, none of this is worth anything if we lose respect for one another. After all, we all mean well. We want what's best for our city. We just have different ways and different views and different strategy to get us there. That's why we got elected. That's why we're here. And that's why we have an opportunity under our democracy to debate this issue. Like I can say, well, my colleague made reference that this is about Providence. I don't know of anybody here that does not love Providence. I actually certainly love Providence. And also made reference to that this is a majority renter city. I can attest to that. But also, don't forget that there is no renter without an owner, without a landlord. It is a collective effort that needs to coexist, that they go together. There is no landlord without a tenant, because the landlord will not be able to survive because they need to have that rent thing in order to meet ends meet, right? And there is no tenants without a landlord because they are the ones that provide housing. And speaking of landlord, let's do a little math. We have a budget of $624 million. Well, 2/3 of that, which is just over $400 million, come from taxpayers, from housing providers, from landlords, property owners. That's where the money comes from. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. I mean, we get portions from the federal government and portions from the state, but 2/3 of our dollars come from property owners. And let me tell you, and let's not forget what our function is. Let's not forget the structure of government. We're here to balance the budget. Now, within that budget, we make laws, we make ordinances, we do this, we do that. We go here and there. There's a lot of things that we do. But at the end of the day, the city needs to run. And for that, you need a budget. Because if you don't have the money, what are you going to do? Close down the city? Well, you can file bankruptcy. You can bankrupt the city. So that is why every time we make a decision, we need to let those emotions aside and think clearly with a pen and pencil. And does it make sense? What is it going to cost? Are we going to have the resources to pay for this? So I can tell you, look, I've been in this country. I've been in this country for 48 years. Since 1978, right? So I've been a tenant. I know what it's like. I'm also an owner. I'm also a landlord. I know what it's like. I'm a legislator, like I said before. So I can look at this all different angles, but with one purpose, to try to make it better. Today, tomorrow, and into the future. So this has a very profound impact, as I've stated before, and I continue to do that. It has a financial impact that has not been disclosed, that has not been addressed, that has not been presented. There was bias in the report that we saw, and I think that we're all adults. We can see that clearly, which is why I introduced a resolution 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, calling for an independent study from an outside. And that,
Councilman, Councilman, we're also going to talk about the ordinance in front of us, not other legislation.
Well, I'm stating the points as to where this is all coming from, and so I understand and you understand how important these steps that we take are. So that did not go well. There was a couple of other resolutions tonight that were introduced that was sent also to committee.
Point of order.
But I just want to highlight that this is critically important. I'm not going into the content of the resolution, but just highlighting how a number of councilors have felt that these areas are very, very important. Look, where I come from, Ward 10, which is Washington Park and Lower South Providence, okay, so predominantly minority. We don't have the white-collar jobs. We don't have maybe the associate degrees, the bachelor's degree, the master's degree, the PhD, the doctoral degree. Maybe that's not our area. Maybe we fall short on education, right? But let me tell you, what people in my ward can do, they work like horses. They work very hard. They save money. And you know what they do? They get into business. And one of the businesses that they have gotten into is actually being able to acquire their first home so that they can provide for their family. And if they do well, they go on and acquire a second home, a third home. Now, we just throwing that out the window. That's their dream. That's their business plan. And that's how they're able to move forward. This legislation
I'm sorry, hold 1 second, please. Folks, do not speak while the counselor is speaking. Thank you very much.
I think we're all going to have an opportunity to be heard, and we all have a right to be heard. Everyone here was heard during testimony, so let's just be respectful to one another. Again, we all mean well. We want to get us there. Because I've been around, I chair many neighborhood groups, many committees, and I feel the pain because I've been out there. I was the chairman of DARE, 2000, 2001, 2003. I know the struggle. I've been out in the forefront. But then going back to what I was saying here, there is a financial impact that we just got a memo a couple of nights ago that's asking a ton of questions that we have not provided answers to. I hate to just vote on something, pass an ordinance just for the sake of passing, and being able to say, I did something about the housing crisis, but then we created an even bigger problem, which is the financial issue thing. Look, we have a responsibility of $624 million. Next year, which will begin July 1st, we're going to have a responsibility of that plus 10 to 12 additional $1 million. Because you see, Council President, our budget grows by 10 to 12 $1 million every year. And hopefully we won't have to raise taxes. We're working so that we won't have to raise taxes. But you just never know, because it's an amount of money that we need to come up with in order to have a balanced budget. At this point, we just don't know. So every decision that we make here, every financial decision that we make here has an impact. So I am legislatively responsible and mature enough to think with my pen, put my emotions on the side, and say, can we afford this? Can we all collectively agree that this will have a financial impact? The only problem, I think we can, but the only problem here is that we don't know what that's going to be. So I am now ready to vote on a legislation that puts a strain on the city, well-intended, but to me, in my view, it's just not ready for passage. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Further discussion. Further discussion on item 23. Councilwoman Anderbaugh.
I turned off my microphone, sorry. I'm going to stay seated. I will be voting yes on rent stabilization tonight, and I just want to start by first giving a shout out to DARE. A lot of folks are saying that this is being rushed, but one of the very first meetings I was requested to take right after being elected was with DARE leadership. And they said, hey, we would like you to come over, we'd like to talk about rent stabilization with you, and that was in 2023. They've been working on this, Justin has a much longer history, working on this for years and years and years, and they've been doing the work of reaching out to us for a long time, for those of us who would take the meetings, to ask questions, educate, and have us do our own homework as well. So I first want to just thank them. They've been in this fight for so long, and they've been working with us for a long time, asking for this. I also just wanted to address that this isn't a sudden conversation. In relation to that, but also this particular version was introduced earlier this year in January, but we've been in conversation about this for a long time. It surprises no one that this is up this year. And we've all listened to, on the Hope Committee and in our neighborhoods, tens and tens of hours of public comment. We've received thousands of written materials. Many of us have read as many as possible, though many of them were duplicative, so we didn't always read all of the duplicative ones because they're the same thing over and over again. But we've gone to listening sessions. We've read thousands of public comments. I've done one-on-one meetings with developers, with neighbors, with landlords, with renters. I know many of my colleagues have done the same. I'm not doing anything other folks have not, I'm sure. Is this perfect? Probably not. Nothing is. None of our legislation is ever going to be perfect. We'll probably come back and make some changes in the future, but it's a start. And while this isn't sudden, this is urgent. Our neighbors can't wait 10 to 20 years, and this council has been working on those longer-term strategies. We just passed a comp plan under the leadership of Councilman Espinal in the Ordinance Committee, thank you, Councilman Espinal, that increases density across the city. We're asking folks to build. We are creating the enabling conditions to build. We're passing TSAs. We're doing the things that developers are asking from us to develop, because we know we need to build our way out of this. But in the meantime, we're losing Providence. We're losing the artists, we're losing the teachers, we're losing the parts of what make this city so amazing. We're losing our diversity because folks can't afford to stay, and we can't afford to wait. And I've never, ever heard anyone accuse the city of moving too fast. No one is ever like, I wish my government would move more slowly to address urgent issues. But this isn't that fast. This is many months in the making for this particular piece, many, many hours of public comment, of of folks engaging in conversation, of hard work and conversations. Lots of discussions with Policy Link, with policy experts across the country. We've hired a national expert in Tom Seguros. I know he happens to be a Rhode Islander, which we're very lucky, but I have friends in other parts of the country who are like, oh my God, you guys got to work with Tom? Like, he is a national expert and a treasure who happens to work at Brown and live in North Kingstown, and we're lucky he's here. And so we have hired independent folks. He is who other places hire as their independent person to evaluate these types of things. He's an expert in municipal finance. We are lucky he's in Rhode Island. So I just wanted to share some of these thoughts. We are trying to do all of the things. The housing crisis is a real crisis, and there's no silver bullet. There's no one policy we're going to pass that's going to be done, we're done, excellent, move on. It's complicated, but people are suffering now. I've been a renter, now I'm a homeowner. I feel very lucky to be a homeowner. If I were trying to buy my home today, I could not afford my home today. 0% could I buy in Ward 3 today. There's not a single home in my ward that I could afford in this moment in time if I were buying today. So, like, I've been a renter. I'm lucky to be a homeowner right now, and I want that opportunity for more people, and I don't want people being pushed out of our city. So I will be voting yes. It's imperfect, and I acknowledge that, but it's something, and it's a step. So I just thank the folks who've engaged and got us to this point, and I thank my colleagues who will be voting yes. I also thank my colleagues who are engaging honestly, even if they're voting no.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilwoman Peterson.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate the feedback from everybody so far. It's actually been very enlightening in certain ways, but also at the same time, we forget so much of what's at stake here. And I know that I come into this as one of the people that was very much thinking of the pros and the cons and not really focused in on what the actual impact was as much as I am now. So I want to start by acknowledging that we have had robust and at times very difficult conversation about rent stabilization. It's a serious conversation that requires research, understanding, and from a variety of views. I knew from the beginning that as written, this ordinance would have a real impact on our ward, on Ward 14, and I didn't take that lightly. And I stand by my decision from day one of making sure that I weighted it out and understood all of the things. Over the past 2 months, I've met with economists. I talked to people from URI and Brown. I talked to landlords. I talked to real estate professionals. I talked to renters. I talked to advocacy groups. I actually took the time and I went to almost every single listening session. The one that I didn't attend was because I had a meeting in my community. And I listened very carefully to every single perspective. I was upfront about my concerns for both tenant and small landlords. And I reviewed all the data provided, the articles that were sent, the reports from URI, the polls conducted, and the truth is there are very valid points on both sides, and none of them should be dismissed. But I also took the time to research jurisdictions that were similar to ours, and they implemented some sort of rent regulation. What I did was I took the opportunity that was given to me to learn more about what it is that we were trying to do. And there are over 150 other jurisdictions that have something in place already. I took 2 cities, very similar to ours, both in Paterson, New Jersey, and in Yonkers, one that had a population that was slightly smaller than ours, and one that had a population that was larger than ours. And they have generally the same demographics and similar population sizes. And what I found was actually really relevant. In these cities, there's no conclusive evidence that these policies have broadly reduced property values. They didn't halt construction, and they didn't shift the burden on the single-family homeowner in the way that it's suggested right now. This didn't mean that there are no risks, but it did mean that the conversation needs to be grounded in more than the fear of the unknown. So let me be very clear. This ordinance is not going to lower rents. It is not a silver bullet for the affordability crisis that we're facing. But that cannot be the standard that we hold every policy to, especially when the reality in front of us demands that we act. Thank you. This administration and this council have taken very proactive steps to continue moving density as a top priority to alleviate the pressures the city is facing. But all of that has outcomes that will support in the future, and the reality is that we need solutions that are going to help right now. Our reality is that Providence is at a crossroads, and for too long, difficult city decisions have been pushed off, left for somebody else to handle. We're here, and we're facing a city that's changing in real time. Changing in its affordability, its economic trajectory, and who can actually afford to live here. We really need to be honest about this. We're building a denser city because we have to. When nearly, half of our land is not taxable, where we rely heavily on our housing and commercial markets to generate revenue, this is all very relevant. In doing so, we have also created a system where housing has become a commodity first and a home second. We're seeing it across our neighborhoods. Communities that were once places for working families to build a future are now being priced out. In places like Smith Hill, Wanskuck, and before the West End, where once it was an entry point to stability, has become an investment opportunity for those with more capital. And that has fundamentally changed the playing field for everybody. The truth is that the playing field has never been the same for everybody. In this conversation, I've heard tenants talk about choosing between paying rent or paying food, about falling behind on utilities, and about the very real possibility of losing their homes. I've also heard small landlords talk about rising costs and the pressure of maintaining their properties. Both of these realities matter, but they are not the same, and they shouldn't, and we can't pretend that they are. During Mayor Jorge Lorz's administration, the city saw more than 4,000 applications for a guaranteed income program that offered $500 a month for 1 year. That program had extremely strict eligibility requirements limited to households that earned under 200% of the poverty line. Out of those 4,000 applications, only 110 were selected. 4,000 applications. That level of need is staggering. And if we're being honest, that need has not gone away. It actually has grown. When we put that number next to what we're seeing on our streets, with more residents facing housing instability and homelessness, it becomes clear that we are not all having the same conversation. Some of these realities are simply not relatable to everybody, and I understand that, but that doesn't make them any less urgent. My family came to this country with nothing, and like so many others, in search of an opportunity. That experience teaches you independence, resilience, and some families were able to build something from very, very little. Others are still just trying to get there. Neither should be villainized, and regardless of how far we've come or how far down the lineage we have to go down, all of our families share a similar story. Today, our future generations are faced with an economy that cannot sustain with wages from 1 or even 2 jobs any longer. And when I think about my own children, the reality that they may not have the same opportunity that my husband and I had to buy early to stay in our city, that says something to me. And it says something about where we're headed. There was a time when one good paying job was enough to live comfortably and build towards something. That's no longer the case. Today, we consider a good job often needs to be well into 6 figures to keep up. Our younger residents are working 2 or 3 jobs just to afford to live here. And the reality is it's not just our younger residents, it's our older residents, and it's a big reality that we're all facing right now. This includes adults with post-secondary education, and not just the ones that haven't achieved that objective just yet. And yet the median household in Providence is still around $60,000. Think about that, who that represents, social workers, teachers, nursing assistants, artists, clerical staff, servers, medical technicians. These are people that are keeping our city running. And many of them are not earning enough to even afford a $1,500 rent. They're not earning enough to afford a $1,500 rent without being cost burdened. So again, we're not talking about the same realities. We also need to be very honest about what we're building. Since 2025, we've approved roughly 1,200 permits, and fewer than 30 of those are for single-family homes. We're not building pathways to ownership at scale here. We're building a city that is increasingly renter-based. So we have to ask ourselves, if we're becoming a city of renters, or if we are a city of renters, don't we owe a responsibility to them as well? Right now, 1 in 4 residents in Providence live below the poverty line. That means 25% of our city cannot fully participate in our local economy. They are not spending money on our small businesses, and we're seeing our small businesses close at a faster pace than we can control. They're not building savings, and many of them are simply trying to stay afloat. At the same time, we're seeing very real impacts of displacement. We see it in our neighborhoods, we see it on our streets, we see it in the growing number of people who are unhoused. These are not projections. This is what's happening right now. We cannot continue pushing this problem off any longer. And we also can't continue to blur the lines of this conversation. There is a difference between small and local landlords who are trying to support their families and large corporate entities that are driving market rates and shaping entire neighborhoods. If we're going to have an honest conversation, then we need to acknowledge that distinction and respond accordingly. My responsibility from the day I took my oath has been to the people of Ward 14. They are my priority, and what I hear from them is clear. Stability is needed. They need to know that they can stay in their homes, they need to be able to plan for their futures, and that they are not a situation away from being displaced. And this is why, despite its imperfections, I am supporting this ordinance tonight. Because doing nothing is not a neutral position. It is a decision to allow the current trajectory to continue. At the same time, my support comes with the expectation that we continue to refine this, because we should be pursuing all solutions, increasing housing production, supporting affordable home ownership opportunities, providing rental relief, and ensuring that development reflects the needs of our residents and utilizing every method to do so. So we have the creativity and we have the diversity, and now we need the stability to match. Tonight, my vote is about recognizing the reality that's in front of all of us and responding to the urgency of this moment and taking a necessary step towards making Providence a city where people don't just come to live, but they come to stay. Thank you.
Councilors, further discussion on item 23. Councilman Vargas.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We are here to represent our constituents. I represent mine, and I also represent part of the city, actually the whole city, because every decision that we make here affects everyone. It's good that we think about everybody. It's a good ordinance. But we forget on one side. It's rent control or rent stabilization, how they call it. But who's going to do a tax control? Who's going to do a water control? A sewer control? Inflation control, how much is the gallon of diesel today? $6. That means we pay more for the food that we're going to be eating tomorrow. Gasoline is $3.89 yesterday. I pumped yesterday, and I don't want to pump no more. Interest
Please
control.
don't speak while the councilor's speaking. Thank you.
Interest control. The banks, we don't have no answers about how the banks is going to give me a loan if this ordinance goes through, though. Because we don't know how much rent we will get. Maintenance control on a property. I changed my hot water tank yesterday. It cost me $700, plus the installation went up to $1,100. And the apartment is paying $1,200. We have a rent fund ordinance. It's in the books. Went to committee. They will see that is another help for the people who really need help with rent. It's $1 million that we put there to help. It's a little bit. We're trying to get it there every year. But going more, who's addressing the electric company? Who's addressing the gas company? Now we use $100 in electricity, and they charge us $200 for delivery. They're using the same cable. They're not using a different cable to deliver the electric that we use. We have to think about it, how we can do better for our constituents, how we can create more resources to avoid our business to be closing down because they need help, how we can create more jobs where we can make at least $20 an hour, not $12, $13. I know it's not enough per hour to live in this city. But we have to work on the better resources. But by doing rent control, it's not going to work. Keep government out of my home.
Councilwoman Harris.
I'm going to remain sitting, just like the rest of my colleagues. All respect to the chambers. This is really deja vu for me, because I've been in the middle of a lot of controversies, discussions, debates like today. A lot of them sound the same. A lot of those debates about fear, things that don't work, the interest groups that are going to benefit or not benefit. But at the end of the day, when you think about what this is really about, yeah, it's definitely about poor people, and more so, it's about, just like what I've heard over and over from my colleagues who have thought through this as well as I have listened, have heard all the debates from both sides, who sit through all the long hours. The Hope Committee, who definitely took this very serious, listening, answering questions when you needed it answered. This is about people remaining stable. This is about people remaining in homes. This is about a basic need. This is about people being able to have a roof over their head without being immediately asked to. Not all landlords do this. And this is all respect to a lot of landlords that are doing their job or the things that they're supposed to do with their units and with their people, their tenants that's living there. I've talked to a lot of landlords, and a lot of landlords are saying what I hear landlords saying today. I don't even raise rent. I don't even know how they keep the property up by not raising rent. I really don't. I think there should be a balance. I think there should be a raise of rent. And I think people should be prepared for that raise of rent. I don't think nothing should be given or handed out to anyone. We were born to work and to struggle and to make our way in life, but not at the pace of someone else's greed. I have to say that out loud, because I've been in the struggle for a very long time, and I've been fighting for a very long time for other people to have opportunities to the things that the people that are. I'm not even going to talk about the 1%ers, because the 1%ers somewhat are doing their own thing, but then you have other people who have more than their fair share and don't want to see other people get to a place where they are able to be stable or sustained. We have families that are suffering right now. We have families that have moved over and over. I have an office here. All I asked for when I first came to the council, just give me an office. The office is because I like talking to people. I like learning from people. I don't talk much because I'm a listener, and I understand, and I receive things from people. I receive people's feelings. I receive how people feel about things. I understand the hurt. I understand what people are going through. My ward, where I grew up, Councilwoman, I grew up. I'm sorry, Council President, I'm not talking to anybody Pacific, but I love Councilwoman Graves' history because she reminded me of things that I've even forgotten over the years. It's been a lot that have happened to change, especially South Providence. And thank you for a lot of that history that were brought up because people need to understand that. A lot of people have moved to this city. A lot of people have a voice in this city. I appreciate that because I believe in leaders. I believe in people making things better. I believe in people really speaking up for people who are not able to speak up for themselves. And that's why I sit in this seat today. Not because I have anything to gain. I sit here because I want to be a voice for the people. Years ago, when I worked at DARE, this conversation was discussed way back then. Rent stabilization. I left DARE in 2015. No, I left in 2012. I never left because they never let me leave. But anyways, 2012 when I officially no longer received a paycheck for my work. But I continue to work with DARE and to support some of the initiatives. A lot of things that DARE have pushed forth, because DARE is directly connected to the people. I'm gonna bring this up and use DARE as an example, like my colleague have already done, because this is not something new. I just want people to know that. This has been discussed for a very, very long time. If you didn't have ears to hear, too bad, because my colleague is right about this was not even received from another council body. Because I don't know what people think about when they think about people's need and basic needs and the things that we're here to serve people for. It's beyond taxes. We've been able to get through a lot of things. This tax has been out of control. Our revenues and city tax has been out of control for years. For years. This is nothing new. But what we do see that's getting even more out of control is more and more people not having a home, not having a roof over their heads. More and more people being displaced. And yes, a lot of it has to do with the increase of rent. A lot of it has to do with that. And we realize that this is my last vote that I'm gonna be taking that's just serious. I'm gonna be making other votes, but this one is as serious as the votes that I had to take in the past. In 2018, I had to take a vote with the Hope Tower, because you know why? Nobody in government was talking about housing. Nobody was talking about housing. Politicians were kicking the can down the road. The crisis got worse. But it took a big developer who just really blew control out of North Carolina, where I'm from, really develop everything, build it up, to come here for people to say, no, we need affordable housing. Well, thank you, people of Providence, for yelling affordable housing. We have been busy at that, trying to figure it out ever since. So I want to close with this to say, I will be voting tonight. I will be voting for the people that I have came here to defend and stand up for and will continue to stand up for. I don't use a lot of words because I'm an action person. I use a lot of action in everything I do. I'm a woman of my word, and I have always stood up for the things that I believe in. And tonight, I believe this is the beginning. You heard our colleagues say, this is not perfect, but we got to do something. We got to do something. We cannot no longer continue to see people being kicked out of their homes. Sorry for being so passionate about this, but the energy is in this room, and this is exactly what we need to be doing, talking through this stuff. I'm going to be voting. I feel bad for people who don't see what other people are seeing. We are not in a place where we are doing something that's going to hurt this city. I've heard it over and over and over again. So I heard it with the foreclosure movement, 2009. I heard it with the civilian oversight. All these things that cause fear and definitely try to distract what the real issue is. People are being pushed out of their homes and rent. I understand that people are trying to make profit, but right now we're having a time in history where we all have to help each other. I want to close with, I appreciate the work that has been done by this council, because the only thing I came in here was chanting, we have a housing crisis. I came in 2014 yelling the same exact thing that we're talking about tonight. But since I am leaving, but I've seen great things have happened, I don't feel like my work here or my being here with my colleagues or the people that I serve with have been in vain. And as I walk out the door, I will not feel bad about this vote that I'm about to take tonight. Thank you all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Goncalves.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say this has been a really good conversation to listen to. Clearly, there are both people on both sides of the aisle on this issue, and I think that it's a very, very important discussion. And I want to say this clearly, my heart in this work has always been in the right place. It's always been in the right place.
We're not going to speak over the counselor. Thank you.
And that's exactly it. I'm not going to give in to pressure. I'm not going to give in to people who are trying to push in a way that isn't productive. I think we need to have thorough conversations about this, and that's what we're doing tonight. And I think this is a good conversation. It really is. I was a black boy, young black boy in the 1990s. The other people laughing behind me. Okay, you can be disrespectful, but I'm going to say my piece. In the 1990s, Fox Point, and the community that I know that was there, that was living there at the time, is no longer there. That entire community has been displaced.
Guys, I absolutely want every single person to stay in this room. If you keep talking over, we're not going to be able to have that. So go ahead, Cal.
And those are the people that I think about every single day. And you can go to my ward and talk to my constituents. They will tell you that I deliver for them. You can talk to the most vulnerable people in my community. You can ask them. Those are the people that I probably talk to the most. I've seen my entire family be displaced from Fox Point. And I'm a renter. I'm someone who lived here for over 3 decades. I'm a working class teacher. So anybody can opine on my background or any of that. But I think ultimately, I've always fought for people. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. I've stood up to the large tax-exempt institutions like Brown University. And there's one through line, absolutely one through line on this council. I've always stood up for my single-family homeowners. I've stood up for the taxpayers. I've stood up for everyone. My predecessor, I don't think does what I do in this city. And so I just think as we've heard tonight, and I'm about lowering the temperature, that there are people on both sides of this issue. Now, you can say one side is right, one side is wrong, you can be disrespectful, you could be distasteful. This is about having a discussion and having productive dialogue, in my opinion. And like I've shared, I've always fought for the people. And I've always fought to ensure that institutions like Brown pay their fair share, because I do know how close this is to so many families, and especially those who are on a fixed income. But that's what I also think about all the time. There's so many people in my neighborhood, who are elderly on a fixed income, and throughout this term, we've voted twice to raise taxes on those same people. And these people are literally hanging on by a thread. And one of the things that I also want to share here is, because they're hanging on by a thread, and we've seen the gentrification, particularly in my neighborhood, those are the people that I've been trying to preserve, because I don't want to have what happened in the past happen again. What happened in the 1960s when we had urban renewal. My neighborhood, Cape Verdean, Portuguese, Irish when I was growing up, immigrant neighbors who completely have been displaced from that community as a result of practically Brown University expanding into our neighborhood. But some of that stuff happened, of course, well after I was, or well before I was in office. And I think that one of the complexities of all of this is, again, trying to preserve the people in my neighborhood who are literally hanging on by a thread. They have high property values. That's not their fault. I think Fox Point has just developed over the years. And as a result, their property values are significantly higher than other areas in the city. And so with that being said, there have been several things that I've asked for, and things that I don't think we've actually answered the questions on. In good faith, right? We have projections ranging from 1.5 million to as high as 17 million. And that kind of gap should give us all pause. Now, I'm not suggesting that we study this issue to death. We know that there's urgency out there. Look, I'm a renter, I get it. I'm a working class teacher, I get it. But I also think that when we're making really big decisions, we sometimes have to take a pause and really think about all the implications, because this is not just a landlord versus renter issue. This is going to impact homeowners as well. Yeah, and look, a lot of people will think I'm emotionless. I have emotions. And for anybody who tries to say that I don't, of course I have emotions. I care about people. I care about my neighbors. But I also think that we can't be mean-spirited about these discussions. We have to do some of the homework. And there are several things that I've been asking for. Number one, and I'm not going to talk about previous policy, but I just want to bring it up because I think it's relevant to this discussion. We have two different perspectives. Again, someone who's saying 1.5 million, someone who's saying, Larry Mancini, who's saying anywhere from 10.3 to 17.5 million. I personally would feel very comfortable, extremely comfortable, if we were able to get a third-party study. That's not an unreasonable ask. I think the reason why we thought we needed to hire an outside consultant was because we thought Larry Mancini somehow was biased. I've heard that from some people. I don't think that's the case, but I know some people do. I know that some people also think that Tom Seguris is biased. He's been on record supporting rent control prior to actually putting together a report for us. So I think the objective thing to do is to have someone else give us that information so we can make logical, reasonable decisions that won't negatively impact anybody. Because frankly, any decision, even a $1.5 million shift in our budget, that makes a difference. We had an $18 million settlement last year because of Providence Public Schools. What do we have to do? We had to raise taxes. You know how many calls I got from my constituents about that very issue? $300, $400 increases, $500 increases. And guess what? These are elderly people on a fixed income. I'm not going to do that to the long-term neighbors of my neighborhood. And I think that those same people have been fighting the gentrification. And you know what's really sad about this whole ordeal? I've had literally people who have just moved to Providence, and I've sat down with everybody. I've sat down with Policy Link, I've sat down with Reclaim, I've sat down with all of these organizations, and some of these same organizations have had people who have lived in our city for less than a year literally threaten. So I've lived here for over 30 years, but the point that I'm trying to share here is I've had people who've just moved to the city essentially telling me how I should be representing the people in my neighborhood. And I think that they need to also talk to my neighbors, like the Pedrosos, for example, who they had a really beautiful, I just read it the other day, a beautiful op-ed talking about how it's the American dream, immigrant Portuguese family, that when I was a kid suffering from food insecurity, you could ask my mom this story, when she couldn't afford groceries, that was the family that helped us. And they're opposed to this. And I've tried to reason and tried to look at the studies, and I've tried actively. And there are people who are running, pressure tactic campaigns when all I'm trying to ask for is what is the data telling us? And what are the unintended consequences? And it's not fair for anyone, I don't care who you are, and this is where I'm going to stand up and not be bullied. It's not fair for anyone to question people's motivations or their intentions. Go talk to my neighbors. Go talk to the people who are the most vulnerable people in my community. Ask them how much I talk to them and ask them how much I fight for them. But what I've also heard, and maybe this is a byproduct of representing a more affluent neighborhood, is people who have no skin in this game. They're not renters, they're not landlords, they're just well-meaning people who have written me hundreds and hundreds of emails. If you want to see my email inbox, I will show you. And these are people just saying, what is this going to do for me? What are going to be the implications on my taxes? And look, I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. okay? But what I can say is, based on what I've looked at, I lived in Minneapolis for several years, and I lived in St. Paul. And I worked in St. Paul. That was a situation, for example, where there was rent control and there wasn't rent control. We can call it stabilization as well, but it is different. It's very different. And I think the exemptions, I want to actually, I'm not someone who's going to be spiteful. I think if people are doing important things to the ordinance to make it better, that's good, right? If they're looking at how this works contextually in our market, that is good. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into it, all the amendments, all the hours. I get it. But let's be real. Let's be real. This ordinance was also introduced January 22nd. I understand that there have been advocates working on this for years and years and years. It is April 1st. That's a bit more than 2 months. I've introduced over, I think, 50 pieces of progressive legislation on this council. Last term, I introduced an ordinance that banned gas-powered leaf blowers. You know how long that took us? 5 years. That was an inconsequential piece of legislation in comparison to what we're voting on tonight. The magnitude of this. And okay. Okay. I've never seen anything rush this fast. And if you say that I haven't been working on solutions, I'll tell you exactly what I just did a couple weeks ago, creatively trying to find solutions. Introduced an ordinance for $1 million in rent relief. It's not a handout. How is it a handout to landlords? If you look at the ordinance, it's
how is this germane to the?
If you look at the ordinance, that helps people below 60% area median income. That's how it's written. It helps people who are dealing with that mortgage arrear or the utility bill that we're talking about. It's targeted relief. I'm not saying that that's enough. I feel like $1 million is just scratching the surface. I agree with that. I think we need more.
Right, I'm sorry, Councilman. We're holding a conversation to the ordinance in front of us. Thank you.
Yeah, but don't try to say that we're not trying to do something about this issue. And I think that, look, no landlord, I'll say it on the record, because, people like to speculate. I'll say it out loud. No landlord, and I want to mention a specific person that people think that, no one has influence over the decisions that I'm making here. And I will be very, very clear about that. But we also need to be really thoughtful about what we're doing, because I don't want, again, to have any unintended consequences on the people that I know I really care about in my neighborhood. And I think we can do both. I think we can do both. I've asked for certain exemptions, the I-95 land, for example. They are building over 1,000 units of new housing. We just had a meeting with them the other day, and they told us very clearly that if those properties aren't exempt, or the things that are, the shovels that are going into the ground, people are going to walk away from building real housing that we need. And my dynamic's a little different because I represent, downtown, I represent, the Jewelry District, I represent Ward 1, which is different. But what I would say is, that's 1,000 units. That's 1,000 units potentially in the pipeline. If we want to address the issue, we know supply and demand is part of the problem. And stop interrupting, please. Okay? That's 1,000 units. And my neighborhood is tough about development, as many of you know. Parcel 9 is a perfect example. For them to put the financing together for that took years and years. 60% of those units, and I worked with them intimately on this, are low-income, affordable housing. One of the reasons why we have the issues that we're having in this city is because we're making it harder to build that kind of housing. And if we lose 1,000 units, for example, and they've told us that this is not my words, this is what they told us. That is not going to help the affordability issue in our city. It's actually going to make it worse. It is supply and demand. And look, I understand that I've had some privileges in my life, where I've been able to, sit down with literally Harvard professors. My degrees from Brown and from Harvard, but I'm gonna put that aside because I don't think about that in this discussion. But I think and I'm not trying to sound out of touch, but what I'm trying to say is I talk to experts. I'm talking to all these interesting people. And I also talk to the people in our communities. And I talk to those people more, but I think we have to figure out paths together. And I'm not trying to divide. I've never been about that. I've never been about that. You could do that, but I'm not about that. I'm about trying to do things right. And if we do not study the implications of this, and we've asked for it, then we're doing our people, in my opinion, a disservice. And I think we can do both. We can support renters, we can protect homeowners, we can act with urgency, and we can be thoughtful. And if you don't like what you're hearing, I'm just being brutally honest. And sometimes people, they might not like what they hear. But I think it's our obligation to really lean in and to look at the data and the studies on this. And again, I can't think of anything that we've passed that's been of this magnitude in less than 2 months. Not asking for years. I think we just need a couple more months. We need more time to look at this and to carefully study it. And that's just where I am.
Thank you, Counselor. Can you just give me a minute here? Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to continue the tradition today of staying seated. I've been sitting back, listening. As people could see, I don't have any pre-written speeches or notes. No shade to people that do. But I like to, speak, off the rip, in the moment, like some of my colleagues. And it's important to bring our passion and emotion to this work. That's something that my mom told me when I was first elected, is whatever you do, Miguelito, always keep that fire in your heart that you've always had. And that's something I always do, no matter what room I'm in. If I'm out in the community, I have it. If I'm here in the chambers, I have it. If I'm at a Pokemon show, Hot Wheels show, I have it. And I say that because it's important to stay grounded in your principles, in your beliefs, in your morals while we do this work. It's easy to get pushed in a certain direction, get influenced. Just the way that electoral politics works in nature allows it, unfortunately, by the form of campaign contributions. And luckily, there's some limits to that here in Rhode Island. But in order to do this work, you need to have money in your campaign account. And who primarily supports it in that nature here at the local level? Special interests. And one of those local, somewhat powerful, you could say, lobby is the Landlord Association. There's folks here in the crowd that have donated tens and tens of thousands of dollars to political candidates over the years. And, folks say they aren't influenced a certain way, but the public sees, one transaction happening and another vote occurring. People, get frustrated with Washington, D.C., and, people see...
Madam President, point of order. This has nothing to do with the legislation that is before us, talking about campaign contributions. Point of order, please.
Guilty by association, I guess. I don't know. We'll move on to what's at heart here, though. I've used this council seat as a tool, to make my community a better place, whether that's in my day job, whether that's on my council seat. I've always tried to do something to move my community forward, and obviously a big issue that has been occurring for decades now is the housing crisis. So I'm not going to get into every of the details of all the work that folks have shared, of what we've done up to this point. But what's important is to protect people that have called Providence home for decades. Young people, looking to live in an apartment, rent for a couple years, and then have that opportunity to purchase their first time property. Something that I just don't understand, and that's why I was talking about the first part of what I was saying, is that we've had plenty of opportunities for engagement. Every single amendment that got asked before this week has been included in the ordinance. I feel like that's something that people need to be aware of, is we started with a product that has been really researched. In my opinion, I think it should be, 3%. I think it should be more, but that's not going to get us across the finish line. So I'm okay with having a starting point and building from there and continuing the work that we're doing when it comes to housing development, when it comes to other tenant protections, because this is the starting point. It's only going to get more intense as we continue with this local economy. It's important that we ground ourselves to why we do this work. And I don't need to say, I've said it plenty of times, but I've seen the severe consequences. We've all seen the severe consequences. It was brought up earlier of what we did with our unhoused neighbors last year, and the positive outcome of it was this year's. We didn't have to be so vocal because there was community involvement. There was 3 churches that stepped up here in Providence to house our unhoused neighbors. And that was a result of some of the work that we did last year. So to say that we're using this as a political tool or as a method to satisfy a certain population, no. It's been said in different polls recently in the past year, 70+% of Providence residents support or somewhat support this piece of legislation. So why does it seem like there's so much opposition? Because there's so much resource behind that opposition. That's why it hasn't been introduced in other legislations. Legislative bodies haven't had the courage to go against those powerful forces. I don't care if I get a primary challenge because of something I supported. At the end of the day, all I care about is helping my neighbors and sleeping at night with a peaceful mind. Knowing that I tried my best. And to wrap up my comments, I'm just gonna say that I'm extremely thankful. I'm gonna remember this moment for the rest of my life. No matter where life takes me, this is something that I'm gonna cherish and just appreciate. I'm looking around, I'm just locking in faces, because this is something that I'm gonna take with me no matter where I'm at, Council President. Because we tried, and we're trying, and we're gonna continue to try until everyone has the basic necessities to survive, to live a life of dignity here in Providence. That's our main job. Thank you, Council President.
Councilwoman Davidson, I did not know you were waiting. I apologize. Please.
No problem. Thank you, Madam President. So I am new to this body, but I am not new to standing up for equity and justice, and I am not new to database decision-making. And with both of those lenses, I will be voting yes this evening on this ordinance. I will, one personal note, 21 years ago, my husband and I moved with our 2 young children, one of whom I'm happy to say is here this evening, to Providence from San Francisco. We lived there for a long time. We had our children there, and it meant a lot to me to be there, but we wanted to move for a variety of reasons. A big one was we wanted to be able to raise our children in a city where they could grow up alongside people from all walks of life, from all economic backgrounds. I didn't want to raise my children in a city that was increasingly becoming a bubble of privilege. And I will note, thank goodness for the rent control and rent stabilization in San Francisco, because it's the only thing that allowed people who actually made that city run to stay. Not enough of them, but it was critically important. Nevertheless, we moved here because we had a real vision of what Providence could be. That vision is eroding quickly. And I think it is critically important for other young families, whether they want to come here or whether they're here now, that they be able to afford to live here, whether they are renters or homeowners, and that we create more equity and more opportunity for everybody. So that's part of the indication of how much I want to stand up for justice, is I want to make sure that we can continue to create Providence as a place where everybody can be and can count on being, have some control over their lives and where they live, have some control over their finances. It's critically important. Now, a couple data points, because we've heard a lot tonight, so I'm not going to belabor it. We have a huge problem here. I hear a lot that if we were to pass this ordinance, it will cause pain. It might. I don't think that so, based on the data. I think there are going to be shifts. I think we're going to make adjustments. What I do know is that families are in pain, and homeowners are in pain, and especially renters are in pain right now. So I am not that convinced about the possibility of future pain when I look at what is happening to people in our city at this very moment. We had 2,287 eviction cases in the past year. We have had 2,287 eviction cases. We've had 2,373 unhoused people in this state, many here in Providence. That's not a coincidence that those numbers are similar. Moreover, almost 20,000 households in Providence are rent burdened. That means that they can't afford a lot of the basics of life. This is no way to live. We have the ability to change this. Another piece about the data, when you look closely, and I am very convinced by this, when you look closely at data from Montgomery County, Maryland, Portland, Maine, and St. Paul, Minnesota, there is no meaningful correlation between the rent stabilization policies they have there and the opportunity over time for developers to expand housing. These are complementary policies. We can do both. We have to do both. So there's nothing in the data that tell me that perhaps individual developers may want to choose to stop. Others won't. This is happening in many, many jurisdictions around the country, and that data is not convincing to me. It's threatening and it's scary, but I do not believe it's going to happen. I do think we have to think carefully about the property tax issue. I do want to note, I want to correct one note about what Mr. Mancini shared with us. He offered a range that started at $1.9 million impact. And perhaps could go up from there. It's an extraordinarily wide range that he offered. I was more convinced by Mr. Seguros' data, which was based actually sort of on not speculation, but what we actually, the picture that we have in front of us. He also pointed out that we will adjust. It will take time, but we will adjust. And I do not think we can continue to perpetuate the status quo, because the status quo has gotten us to a terrible place. I'll make one more point. I have spent a tremendous amount of time talking to my neighbors, talking to property developers, talking to people on every side of this issue. I've had a lot of coffee with a lot of people. And, I have been very open to listening to everybody's points of view. I also want especially to listen to the points of view of the people who are in Ward 3. And we all, I'm sure, have received a lot of Ward 2. We all have received a lot of email, and I certainly have received quite a bit myself. One of the things that I did is when I received email from people who lived in my ward, I immediately answered it, offered to meet, did everything I could to reach out. It did not matter what side of the issue they're on. But because I very recently ran for election, I'm also pretty familiar with addresses and names. And I started to notice that I didn't always know the names of the people who were writing to me. And I double-checked, and quite frequently, people who had addresses in my ward did not live in my ward. I know it's a subtle distinction, but I'm not going to go to East Greenwich to have coffee with you. So for the people who live in Ward 2, who have reached out to me, I've done my best to answer emails, to meet. I have been to every single hearing. I also missed just one of the neighborhood meetings. It is incredibly important to listen to everybody's voice. And at the end of all that, based on the data, based on my own lived experience, I'm very proud to vote yes tonight.
I see two mics on from folks who have spoken already. I want to remind everyone that our council rules prohibit speaking more than twice, so if now's the time, that's fine. Are there other people who haven't spoken yet before we go? I think it's just you, Councilman. Do you want to speak? Royas? You spoke already. Okay, great. Councilwoman Graves.
I keep hearing about how fast this has been going. One of the first committees I was put on was the Housing Task Force. And we explored a lot of things. We were trying to figure out how we could keep people housed, how we could house the ones that were unhoused. And out of that came rent stabilization too. Our staff was working on that. They did some study on that. So this is not new. Okay, you can't hear me? Do I have to get up and get loud again? Okay. So this is not new. We finished that last year, early in the spring. And we talked about it before the budget came out and before the taxes came out. So it's not like we didn't know we were talking about this and we were starting to do this. So this isn't new. And then I find out from speaking to a lot of my colleagues that you guys, some of the ones that were here before, had been talking about it the last little section. So you guys have been talking about it for a while. So this isn't new. This isn't anything that just dropped out of the sky. This is something that we've all known need to be done. It's just that it's gotten worse. And the homeless situation has gotten worse. And like I said, time and time again, when are we going to stop? You know, we keep saying, well, let's wait. Let's wait. We need to wait. And I don't know how many times I keep telling you, Martin Luther King told us about waiting. If we keep waiting, it's never going to get done. We, the people that sit there that's waiting for the trickle down, we know it's never going to come. So we're tired of that. People are tired of this. We have to do something, and we have to do something now. Because people's lives are at stake. People's well-being, it's at stake. If you don't think that a person, a child, let's even take the adults out of the equation. You know, if you don't feel sorry for them, feel sorry for them babies. Because it affects them. If they're mentally getting up, not figuring out where they're going to lay their head, and then they got to go to school the next day, and they don't have a place to lay their head, they're going in there probably in the same clothes that they had on the day before. And we all know how cruel other kids can be. That's a stigma that we're putting on these kids. They're worried enough. We shouldn't be adding all these things to their plate. As for taxes and all these other things, we've been talking about taxes I know about taxes since I was a little kid. We always knew that there are always going to be something. Death and taxes is always coming. So we need to stop talking about taxes because we know it's going to happen. We also need to stop talking about the gas and the electric. If we're not going to control it, why are we talking about it? Why are we talking about it? That's something that we need to bring up to the next stage. We need to go out and maybe pick it right along with other people, but that's nothing that we can control. This is something that we can talk about and control. Let's do what we can do. Let's do our step. Let's do our stuff. We need to do what we can. And if we don't start now, then stop talking about it, you know, and stop looking at the people in the streets and the encampments. Stop talking about them. Stop talking about the people that are going to be homeless next time. Stop talking about everybody, you know, because you don't care. And I'm going to tell you something. We used to always say, you know, God, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. But we know what we're doing. So I can't even ask them to forgive us. We know exactly what we're doing. We're intelligent 15. None of us are dumb. Not a one of us. So let's not be callous. And also remember, yes, we have wards, but we're supposed to be fighting for the welfare of the city. So don't worry about this one little family here and that one little family there. Yes, I'm concerned about my one little family. But I'm concerned about the heart and soul of this city. So let's start thinking about this. Are you going to be able to look in that mirror? Michael Jackson said, I'm talking to the man in the mirror. Tomorrow, after you make this vote, are you going to be able to look in that mirror and say, oh, you know what? I did the best that I could do. I did the best for my city. Are you? And be truthful with one another. Tell to yourself. Be truthful to yourself. Because I can sit here and tell you what I'm doing it for. I already have. But sometimes I'm wondering about some of the rest of y'all. I really am. I really am.
Majority Leader. Please, Majority Leader, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'll be very brief. It's getting pretty late, but I wanted to conclude the night with my final remarks. I hear the passion and the reasons as to why, but I'm not just sure that we're helping renters by guaranteeing a rent increase. I just see it different in that. You help the renters by lowering their rents, not by guaranteeing a rent increase every single year. So that's why where I different. And when we make reference to the people that don't live in the city, but yet they own properties in the city, well, they're providing a service that we need as renters. They're providing a service, and they paying the taxes that we need to run our city and also to pay our salary. Everybody that's here is getting paid, and that's coming from people that live in the city, but other people that don't live in the city, but they have an investment. Because of everything that I stated previously that we need and lack of information thereof that I was going to need, I got to categorize this as signing a document without reading it. You sign it, and then sometime down the road, you will find out what it was exactly that you signed for, and it just might be a little too late. So I got to say, I want to conclude by saying that, when you have restricted revenue at the same time that you have rising cost, that is a recipe and that is an equation for financial failure, and that can sink the city into bankruptcy. And then if that happens, renters, owners, no one will be able to survive. There is a famous economist out there that once said, and I'm paraphrasing, that there is no more effective way to destroy a city than rent control. And with that, Madam President, I'll conclude my points. Thank you.
Further discussion. Councilman Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to remind my colleagues that it is renters that subsidize property taxes in the city. Because I was under the assumption, Madam President, that when folks refer to investment property, the sort of catch to that and the appeal is that your tenant would pay your mortgage. And so I've always been under the assumption that it's actually renters that pay the property taxes in the city. I want to pivot for a second, Madam President, if I can, to it's relevant. I've heard some of my colleagues talk about the Fox Point neighborhood. And in fact, I have close ties to Fox Point. I've lived there in my early years. My grandmother lived at 174 Gano Street. Took my brothers in when I was just a freshman at Hope High School. And as we know, decades ago, Fox Point was a tight-knit, working-class neighborhood of Cape Verdeans, Portuguese, Irish, as my colleague earlier had said. Everyone knew each other. The community wasn't, the idea of a community wasn't just an idea, it was literally reality, and that's what made Fox Point special. And we know, unfortunately, the consequences of history. We know that Fox Point was labeled blighted. It was cut in half by a highway. Families were displaced. This was a community that was scattered. And so we've been referencing a lot tonight about history. And Madam President, what I would say is that history only matters if it informs what we do. It informs what we do now. Because when we talk about displacement in the context of rent stabilization, we should acknowledge that displacement in the city hasn't gone away, it has just changed. And after urban renewal in Fox Point came something different. It was the powerful studentification of that neighborhood. An influx of demand drove up prices and slowly pushed people out. And at that time, leadership understood what was happening, and they acted. Even Brown University, of all places, at the time discouraged student rentals because it recognized the impact on housing cost. And former Councilman John Murphy, I want to say this very clearly, former Councilman John Murphy, representing Fox Point at the time, he went further, passing an ordinance in 1972 to limit the number of unrelated people living together, specifically to slow that pressure and protect the neighborhood. That was leadership that understood something simple, Madam President. If you do not intervene, the market will displace you. And we know that story continued, how home prices rose dramatically, longtime residents leaving, and the Fox Point neighborhood transformed. And here we are again, different moment, same pressure. And some of my colleagues tonight have continued this parade of let's delay, because we're told that we need an independent study, that rent stabilization might impact property values that might shift burdens onto single-family homeowners, none of which, and I remind my colleagues, is supported by any available peer-reviewed research, no matter how many times it's repeated. And I should remind my colleagues that ChatGPT nor Google is a reputable source for information. And those concerns are being used to justify why we should slow this down and why we should not take a vote for rent stabilization tonight. But I think it's fair to ask, Madam President, where was the same concern when we approved tax stabilization agreements, or for those who may not know, tax breaks typically for developers? Where was the call for an independent study on those tax breaks? Because members of this body have supported, and in some cases led and secured, tax breaks for developers in Fox Point. Let me go right into this plainly, because we're talking.
Point of order. We don't need to be calling out people on the floor.
I am not calling
This
out.
is very childish, kind of like when we leave and laugh at people when they're speaking. It's very childish. Can we grow up and be a council people?
I am not directing this to anyone.
Not anyone in particular,
Thank you,
not any
Councilman.
particular neighborhood.
I want to be clear that I am not calling anyone out. I am directing my words to the Madam President. So in terms of these tax breaks, I want to kind of run through a quick timeline. In 2024, this council approved a tax break at 165 Gano Street, which resulted in over $700,000 in tax savings over 10 years for the developer of that property. In the same year, this council approved a tax break for 180 Gano Street, saving the developer over $1.7 million in over 10 years. Just recently, this council approved a tax break at 157 Gano Street.
Point of order again. What does it matter? We've approved tax stabilizations throughout the city. Why are we picking on just Fox Point?
Councilman, just speak to the, move
Madam
it towards the
President,
ordinance,
may I continue?
please.
May I continue?
Move it towards the ordinance in front of us, please.
I will just finish my remarks by saying, when we ask about how we're going to pay for this, when we talk about the fiscal impact of this ordinance, I want you to have that same energy when it comes to handing out these tax breaks to these developers. Have that same energy, colleagues. Thank you very much, Madam President.
All right, any further conversation? Any further comments on item 23?
Councilman Vargas.
Councilman Vargas.
I might be the last. What a history.
Madam President.
I learned a lot tonight. But we had to work on creating jobs. We need jobs. We need businesses. We need revenue. We need to concentrate how to bring more businesses into the city. Then we can make money and live happy. I want to end with this. A property owner pays taxes and we sacrifice for 30 years, 20, 30, 35 years. A renter only sacrifice for 1 year and he can move around, not us. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Madam President.
President Pro Tem.
Thank you. As we conclude with this, at least what I'd like to think that we're concluding, as I said before that I was going to speak again and let my colleagues speak, but I often, when we get up here, we want to talk about specifically to the legislation, but everyone share their story. For me, personally, this is also a lesson in my life, living here in the United States for the past 50 years. My mother brought me here from a small town in the Dominican Republic, poor family. Lived in New York City, Washington Heights. My aunt lived in a rent control apartment that to even last year only paid about $700. So I know firsthand, in a sense, after diving into this, what rent control is. We moved here to Providence when my mother, as I speak to her, and I continue to speak to her, how much does she have as a single mom moving to Providence with 3 kids, me being the oldest, and she tells me she only had $200. When we arrived here in 1979, my mother only paid $90 for an apartment. Yes, that's about 46 years, 45 years ago. I've had a wonderful experience in the city of Providence. Always lived, we moved about 9 times, from Broad Street to Camden Street to Chad Brown, Miller, Washington Park. And since then, as a young man going to school, wanting to live the American dream, decided to also stay in Providence. At one point, I just wanted to leave, join the Air Force, which I did. And I retired from there 22 years. Since those times, I've become a homeowner and also a real estate agent, a patient advocate at Rhode Island Hospital, knowing the tribulations of all our families. So I've been in the front seat of seeing how difficult it's been for families over the years. I also had the opportunity to run for office, like my colleague had said, Mr. Sanchez. At times, you want to always advocate for your neighbors and your people that you're going through so much hardship. No matter what happens, you take that vote, your conviction. And all around you in politics, those who have wealthier friends or networks always had the money. But in our communities, we've always had those challenges. And as I continue to grow with this, when I hear about being thoughtfulness, having data, equity, justice, this speaks of all of that. I think about when we have African American Heritage Month and we get to see and learn about who was Walter Stone, Maria Lopes, if you remember, Mike Van Leesten, These are the people that actually fought for the communities of color because they were being displaced from communities such as they used to call it, the wealthier areas. And that was the battle here. Yes, things have changed. The demographics have changed. Well, coming to 2026, Rhode Island and Providence continues to grow. I served in the housing, as chair of housing in the Senate. Same thing. Rhode Island and its communities outside of Central Falls, Pawtucket, Providence, they don't want affordable housing in their own backyard. For 25 years, they've had the same amount and they haven't created any affordable housing. And they're always fighting it. And so here in our city of Providence, when we have been advocating to keep people in their homes, whether they're renting, whether they want to at least realize the American dream, I know what that is because I went through it. It continues to be that much costlier. And for those of us who became landlords and then were able to move on to Cranston, Warwick, Barrington, and still own properties here, you know what I'm talking about. But at one point, you decided to become an investor. The return on investment. This is about people, this is about people over greed. This is about gentrification, the economic pressure that's been happening in our city of Providence in the state of Rhode Island. I've traveled to other cities, such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas. I've gone to these cities 10 years after, and you can't recognize neighborhoods. Because why? It's hip, it's culturally, and it's been happening here. Yes, my colleagues will all pass things here at TSA, but we know what the answer is. It's about making sure that investors are actually putting a deal together that at least has mixed income residents, affordable renters, and then those who can't least afford build more. Because we all know that supply and demand beats everything. But while we wait, as we heard the testimony with one of the former state housing executive, said it will take decades before we actually get to the number of units that we need. So that is data for you. In the city of Providence, we have a population of about 190,000 people. In the city of Providence, 190,000 people. 44% Hispanic. White, 33%. Black, 12 to 14%. Other, 7%. The economics of it, the average income here, it's about, what, 68,000? For the city of Providence, in our neighborhoods, average is about 35,000. And so when we're actually looking at data, and yes, this will have a financial impact. That's what I heard. But it's worth taking and moving forward and figuring out these answers, because we as a people that are low income, that have gone through the tribulations and not having the higher education, you're not going to be here. I joined the military because of the American dream. And so this rent control was established back in 1920 based on the fact that we wanted to house veterans in New York. And that has evolved. This is not rent control. This is rent stabilization. We have done the work. I asked my colleagues to really dig in and value the work that we've done as a community while bringing our own experiences, while we all have moved to the city of Providence. And so we all know that Providence is facing a well-documented housing crisis, ranking among the worst in the nation for housing supply, affordability, displacement pressures. This is not speculation. It is a sustained trend that demands policy intervention. There is a broad consensus across every perspective. Providence is in a housing crisis, and inaction is not an option. The ordinance is not a standalone action, but a necessary component that builds upon the coordinated legislative strategy the council has already initiated, including strengthening the Housing Trust Fund, allowing accessory dwelling units by right, and advancing zoning reforms. Our legislative findings are clear. Housing stability is fundamental, and the sharp rise in rents has outpaced income growth, creating instability, obstacles to long-term planning for both tenants and property owners. A defined, technically administered system for setting rent adjustment is necessary to bring greater steadiness to the rental market, and we have done that. This is what this ordinance does. Providence is currently a city of scaffolding and displacement. The families who form the cultural and economic heartbeat of our city, those in wards 1, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 14, 13, all of us. And I commend our colleagues who are here with us that are more from the affluent community for supporting the rent stabilization, because they believe, they see the numbers, they have been in the meetings, they have heard, and they sat down with the people that had their opinion. All of our residents are being priced out of their own living rooms. Gentrification is a mathematical eviction. In all these wards, including mine, which the average income is just below $32,000, 70% is of Hispanic heritage. Look at your own ward and see who are you really representing. Look at in all your wards. The median household income hover around $35,000 in most of your other wards, if you haven't looked at it. We have seen rent spike by double digits in the last 2 years. Why? Because when corporate landlords from out of state hike the rents by 20%, they are building an invisible wall that long-term residents cannot climb. In Owneville, just in Owneville, the pressures are acute, threatening to displace the artists, the immigrant communities, and families who made the neighborhood vibrant. The rent stabilization ordinance is the essential solution before you and us. This policy is not a stagnant freeze, as critics suggest, but a predictability tool. By providing an optional annual increase at 4% with a potential maximum of 10%, because landlords don't have to increase the rent, because the landlords, if they need to increase above 4%, they go before a board to justify that they replaced the roof, to justify that they had to replace the furnace. We utilize a fair return framework that allows landlords sufficient return to maintain their properties while protecting tenants from 200 to 300 overnight rents. It is a reliable foundation for planning for everyone involved. Economically, rent stabilization acts as a social insurance policy. When a family rent is stabilized, the money that stays in our local neighborhoods, spent on the bodegas or the McDonald's in Elmwood, Family Dollars, or just a mom and pop, whether they're in Elmwood, Cranston, Manton, or on a child's school supplies to support their education. Furthermore, it actively prevents the churn of displacement that breaks local systems and dissolves social fabric. Critically, it directly reduces the estimated $20 million that the city and the state spend annually on emergency shelter and eviction services. In conclusion, we cannot simply build our way out of this crisis that is happening now. New construction takes years. Stabilization protects people today and in the future. Thank you, and thank to all the organizations that helped us out. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this rent stabilization ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Councilwoman Ryan.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree we have a housing crisis. We have an affordability crisis. But this legislation is not the solution. I do not support this legislation as drafted. The reality is demand for housing in our beautiful city has exploded overnight. It's forcing our prices up, and costs are spiraling out of control. As legislators, we need to find the balance. The crisis is simple economics to me. It is supply and demand. We've heard it over and over again. History shows that rent control doesn't work. This legislation, as drafted, will kill development. It will kill the corresponding construction jobs that come with development. Supply and demand is the issue. We need to look at solutions at the macroeconomic level, not micro. Moreover, I do not support the politically appointed rent board that is suggested in this ordinance. Many of you know I've worked in housing for over 40 years. My job as an asset product manager out of Providence College was to create programs for families so that they could afford to rent, buy, and keep safe, affordable homes. I've done that for 40 years. Housing market is cyclical. Right now, we're seeing a shortage and escalated prices, just as we're experiencing gas. It's an economic question. Gas prices are rising. Why? There's a lack of supply. So our charge as legislators is to build more housing. We can only solve this problem by building ourselves out of it. Supply and demand will determine the price, not what we do here tonight. Of course, the stories that we've heard about our constituents, heard from our neighbors, they're compelling. And some of the stories I've heard from my colleagues are equally compelling and heart-wrenching. But rent control is not the answer. I admire my colleagues' passion on. Also, I don't feel we can't afford this legislation. We heard cost estimates projected by Mr. Seguris. In my review, that estimate is insufficient to implement the ordinance. We've received, I think each council person received a letter asking from the administration, asking for a fiscal note that appropriately reflected the cost of this ordinance and what it was going to mean for taxpayers. Because if we implement this legislation as is, it is going to change our tax structure significantly. And the costs are somewhere between 1.5 and 10 million or $11 million. I think any business person would agree when you have two quotes, when you have two different evaluations or estimates of cost, what do? You get a third estimate, an independent estimate. Why? Because we're talking about a lot of money. And I think that's why some of my colleagues put forth an ordinance to request that we have another independent study, an analysis of the math. Do we need to do something to provide relief? Yes, we do. I just don't think this is it. I think we need to roll up our sleeves, spend some more time, and help and work together collaboratively instead of beating each other up, laughing and joking at each other. Roll up our sleeves and get the job done and deliver relief for the families that we all represent. So in closing, I'd like to say I admire my colleagues' passion, I truly do. But I respectfully disagree, and I will vote no on this ordinance. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Council President.
Oh, Councilwoman Peterson.
Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge the comment that was just made, and I have to say that as a final point, I agree with independent study. However, I think we should do it for everything that we do going forward. If we're going to be doing it for that, then we should have done it when we had the purchase of Paolino property at 444 Westminster. When we did it for water, when we purchased Water Fire
Point of
Center, we
order,
should
are
have done
we
that
talking
as well.
about this legislation or other legislation?
Absolutely referring to what the comment was done, what the comment that was just made.
I agree.
That's
I probably
all.
shouldn't have let that comment
Thank you.
either. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Madam President,
I'm
can we
sorry.
just move forward?
Yes.
Council President, may I speak a second time? Addressing my colleague, we had fiscal notes in the file that were certified and documented when all those decisions were presented and voted on. Thank you.
Pro Tem Pichardo, Councilwoman Peterson. Pro Tem Pichardo, would you mind chairing so I could make a final comment here?
Okay.
Hello. Thank you. I really wanted to preside over the vote, so I was avoiding
Councilwoman President
taking over.
Miller, recognized.
Thank you, President. So I've got nothing to add that wasn't beautifully said. I have the full respect of my colleagues who have really engaged this issue pretty deeply in both the, for and opposed sides of this debate. There is one disappointment that I have to say as someone who really tried to move this process and tried to include people from last year with the Housing Crisis Task Force, and then since introduction. More time was offered to people in this room, and it was either ignored or denied. Folks who are saying we need more time, I need people to understand that there is a debate, there is an honest debate that we are having here because we care about these issues, not because we're motivated by some other thing, right? We care about this issue. Reasonable people can disagree about if rent stabilization is the right choice for Providence. I have done a lot of research. I believe it is, quite obviously. But reasonable people can't stand and say, we need more time after having denied more time. Reasonable people cannot honestly enter a debate after saying, I do not want more time to include the issues that I am speaking on. So I really appreciate my colleagues who have engaged this debate fully and honestly. I appreciate the outcome of the vote that's happening. I am disappointed about using moments especially when I can't speak to them, using moments what I would argue dishonestly when I'm up there chairing and can't speak to the moment. So thank you.
Thank you. No further comments. Madam Clerk, please open the roll call electronic vote.
The vote is open. Council President Miller.
Aye.
Deputy Majority Whip Anderbois.
Aye.
Councilor Davidson.
Aye.
Majority Leader Espinal.
No.
Senior Deputy Majority Leader Gonsalves.
Nay.
Councilwoman Graves.
Aye.
Deputy Majority Leader Harris.
Aye.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Aye.
Council President Pro Tempore Pichardo.
Aye.
Councilor Royas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Ryan.
Nay.
Majority Whip Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilman Taylor.
Nay.
Councilwoman Ana Vargas.
I say no.
Councilman Oscar Vargas.
Nay.
And we need to put in electronic votes for Councilor Royas, Councilwoman Vargas. And the vote is closed. You have 9 ayes, 6 nays. The motion passes and the matter is passed for the first time on a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion carries. At this time, call back President Miller to preside over the regular session.
We still have two couple of items on the agenda.
Yes. We do, sir. Item 24.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
motion to waive the reading of item 24 through 27.
Second, Madam President.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Item 24, 25 to the Committee on Ordinances, 26 to Claims and Pending Suits, 27 to the Committee on ERP.
So noted.
28, please.
Madam President, motion to waive the reading of item 28 and pass on a voice vote.
Second, Madam President.
Any discussion on item 28? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes.
Madam President,
Majority Leader.
being that there's no further business in the calendar, motion to adjourn.
Madam President, expression, please.
Speak on the motion, please.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just want to say to everyone to remember, I want to say this is a Holy Week. I want to wish everyone a happy Easter. This is only a political thing, but after here, everybody's equal. Happy Easter to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy Passover and
Madam
all other
President,
things.
Madam
Other
President.
discussion. Councilwoman Anderbach.
Very quickly, point of personal expression. I
You're,
just want to
you're
wish.
speaking on the motion. Just
Oh,
to
I'm
make
speaking on the
Robert's
motion
rules,
to
yes.
say that tomorrow's Councilman Royas' birthday, and I just wanted to wish him a happy birthday.
Oh, that's right. He's a
Happy birthday,
just like
Councilman.
me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you.